this up. Okay, so last night we began the second parak. We began the next parak in Maseches Tamid. We've passed out the art scroll Gemaras, and if you're using the front, which is the standard, the Aramaic, the Hebrew, Chav Tes Amud Aleph, Chav Tes Amud Aleph, the last two lines of the Mishnah. If you're using the back, again, not all the way in the back where it's Maseches Midos, but in the back where it's the art scroll elucidated, it would be 29.82. 29.82, that final paragraph. So again, if you're using the front, Chav Tes Amud Aleph, the last two lines of the Mishnah. If you're using the back, it's 29.82, the final paragraph there. So let's see. Last night's Mishnah, we discussed that the Kohen, he would go up on top of the Mizbeach, he would clear off and make an organized pile of the ashes and the coals. That was called the tapuach, that big mound that he would set up. He would also set up two pyres that would be burning. There would really be three. The Mishnah only told us about two, though. He would set up two. One would be the major pyre that the korbanos would be brought on. And the second one would be a smaller one made of choice wood that would produce the coals that would be needed to burn the kataras in the Kodesh section. And we also said, the Mishnah didn't discuss it, there would be a smaller third fire that was just meant to be an Eish Tamid, to be a constant Eish that was burning on the Mizbeach. So if the other fires may, for whatever reason, have gone out, we'd have fire to start away. So let's see. We said last night in the Mishnah that when he went on the Mizbeach in the morning, he took off all the limbs or parts of animals that hadn't burned completely through the night, made a pile with them either on the Mizbeach, if there wasn't room on the Mizbeach, and on the ramp at a certain place. Now, what did he do with them? So the Mishnah says, the limbs and the fats, any parts of the animals that were on the Mizbeach that did not get completely consumed over the night. So now that he's built a new pyre, so he would put them, all those parts, again, he had a shovel, he had the fork, all those utensils, he would put them on top of that pile of wood that he had set up on the Mizbeach. At that point, he would light both of them. Really, again, we said with three. The Mishnah is just talking about two of them. He would light them with fire. And then he would descend from the Mizbeach, and he would join all the other Kohanim. They would reconvene at the Lishkas HaGazis. That was the chamber of the hewn stone. That was where the Sanhedrin would meet. If you have the map that's in your Gemaras there, if you want to see exactly where the Lishkas HaGazis is, Lishkas HaGazis is number 14. You see there's a chamber on the northern wall about halfway. It was a little bit further east than the Beis Hamikdash where the Kohanim slept. The Lishkas HaGazis, that was on the northern wall where it says Safon, right where it says Safon, chamber 14, that was the Lishkas HaGazis, the chamber of hewn stone. That's where all the Kohanim would meet up. And the next thing they would do is figure out who's going to have the rest of the tasks of the avoda for the day. All right, let's see the Gemara. The Gemara is now going to talk about some of the details that came up in this Mishnah. So the Gemara says as follows. It said, earlier in the Mishnah said, sometimes there would be so much ash or coal on the Mizbeach, would be 300 kor, which was an incredible amount. And we said last night that the Gemara is going to tell us that was a guzma, that was an exaggeration, just meant to say, okay, there was a lot of stuff. So let's see. So the Mishnah says, Amar Rabbi says, guzma, this was an exaggeration. Don't worry, there was not 300 kors worth of ashes and coals. That's just a staggering amount. Now that Rabbi is going to say, there's another case where Chazal used the guzma. What was that? Hishku esat tamid b'koshel zav. We're going to learn soon about the carbon tamid in the morning. And the carbon tamid in the morning, it was a lamb. So it says that they would give it to drink water in the morning. They would give it water out of a golden bowl. So he says, Amar Rava Guzma, that also was an exaggeration. They didn't give it out of a golden bowl. Rather, it was like a copper bowl that had been polished so well that it looked like it was gold. But they didn't give an animal to drink out of a golden bowl. So that was also a Guzma. That was Rava's Shita. Now the Gemara rather continues. Amar Ravami, Dibra Torah Lashon Havai. There are times where the Torah uses Havai. Havai is an expression that means like it's imprecise, it's an exaggeration, like a guzma. There are times where the Torah uses wording that it's not meant to be taken exactly. Dibur Nevi'im Lashon Havai. There are also times where in Navi, you'll see terms are used, it's not meant to be taken literally or exactly. It was also an exaggeration. And also Dibur Chachamim Lashon Havai. There's other times where I'll show you where Chazal our sages in the Mishnah, they used expressions that weren't meant to be taken literally. They also were an exaggeration. Now we'll go through, we're going to explain them. What's an example where the Torah sometimes uses an imprecise language and where it's a bit of an exaggeration? It says, Arim Gedolos, we just had this, it was last week, this is such great timing. It was in Parshas Devarim, where Moshe Rabbeinu was recounting for Klal Yisrael when he sent in the Meraglim what their mission was and what they came back and reported. So it says, Arim Gedolos of Itzuras Bashamayim. They reported that there was these fortified cities, these massive, tough cities, that the fortresses went all the way up to the heavens. So the Gemara says, Bashamayim Salkadayach, come on. What do you think? That those fortresses that the ancient Canaanim had went all the way up to the heavens? They had these like Dubai-style skyscrapers. Come on, what are you talking about? Elaguzma, it's an exaggeration, meaning they had very tough, difficult-looking fortresses. So I use an expression, Ada Shamayim, like went up to the heavens. Okay, Dibru Chachamim Lashon Havai. What's an example where the Chachamim, now you see it's out of order. Rabbi had said there are times that the Torah uses, there are times Navi uses, there are times Chachamim use. So it's out of order. Now it goes Torah, Chachamim, and Nevi'im. Some of the Farshim switch the order, so it stays consistent. We're just going to read what it is here. Dibru Chachamim Lashon Havai. What's an example where Chazal in the Mishnah, they sometimes speak in exaggerations? So the first one is Hadamran, the one we just saw in our Mishnah about the Tapuach, about that massive mound of ash and coal that was on the Mizbeach. Come on, it wasn't 300 korb. What's another one? Hishkuas Tamid B'Kol Shazav. That other one that Rava mentioned, that they would give the Tamid in the morning, they would give it a lot of water to drink. By the way, we'll see when we get to it. The Gemara says a very a practical reason why they gave the Tamid a lot of water to drink was because they had to skin it. And they felt that if the animal was really well hydrated, the skin would come off a lot easier, as opposed to if it was dehydrated, like shriveled up like a raisin, then it would be much harder to get the skin off it. So that we'll see that when the Gemara will come up. But again, according to Rava, they didn't really give it a golden bowl. No one feeds their animal out of gold. It was a copper that was really polished well. It looked like gold. Now, what's Divru Nevi'im Lashon Havai? What's an example of Nevi'im? Where in Navi do we see exaggerations? So it says, this is from Malachim. It says, Va'am Mechalalim B'chalalim, that everyone was playing with their flutes, Atibaka Aretz B'kolam, and the ground split from the noise. So this is talking about when David HaMelech was at the end of his life, it came this close to having a breakage from who he had appointed to be king. He wanted Shlomo HaMelech to be the next king, but we read right at the beginning of Malachim that when David HaMelech was at the end of his life, it was this close, he had a son, Adoniyahu ben Chagis. I remember that's in the Haftarah, if you look at the Haftarah for Parshas Chayesara. It's my bar mitzvah parsha. I'm not a master of things like this. This is where it comes up that Adoniyahu ben Chagis, he plans to assume the kingship all on his own, even though no one asked him to do this, and even though David didn't want him to do this, he was going to seize it, and they put a stop to it before David HaMelech died. So Bathsheba, who's the mother of Shlomo, and also Nasan HaNavi, they tell David HaMelech about this attempted coup, you might say. And David HaMelech makes it known what his will is, that he says absolutely before he passes, he's going to let everyone know Shlomo HaMelech is supposed to be the next king. So before that happened, when Adoniyahu and his band were making a grand party that he was planning on seizing the throne, so it says they made a huge party with a lot of orchestra playing. It was so much noise like it caused an earthquake. It didn't cause an earthquake. It means it was this wild noise, wild party that was taking place. It was like earth-shattering noise. That's what it means. Okay, so that's an example of they spoke in exaggerations. All right, so now we said that Rava held that there was two examples of when Chachamim spoke in exaggerations. One was our Mishnah, where it said that Tapuach could be 300 kor worth of ash and coals. And the other one was about the lamb, the Tamid lamb, drinking from a gold bowl. It didn't really drink from a gold bowl. So now we're going to see that not everyone agreed with Rava about that detail. Amar Rav Yanai bar Nachmani Amar Shmuel b'shloshim mekomos dibru Chachamim b'lashon havai. So he said there were specifically three places where Chazal spoke in exaggerations. What were they? Eluhain, here they are. Number one was the Tapuach, the case of the mound. Okay, that accords with us. Number two is the Geffen, recording something involving a grapevine. We'll see that coming up soon. And then it says the Paroches, something involving the Paroches that was in the Beis Hamikdash. There was an exaggeration as well. But what do you see? What's not on that list? It says there was three things Chazal used as exaggerations. He says Tapuach, Geffen, and the Paroches, but he didn't have the business about the Tamid drinking from the gold bowl. So it says La Fuke Midarava. So you clearly see here that this Rav Yana, who's saying in the name of Shmuel, he's saying that he did not list the business about the Tamid drinking out of gold, meaning that was an exaggeration. He holds that they really did give it to drink from a golden bowl. Because we learned in a Mishnah that the Mishnah is going to tell us that they gave the Tamid to drink in the morning water out of a golden bowl. But Rava had held Guzma. That was an exaggeration. So Kamash Malan. So what do you see from this Rabbi Yanai? Hani in that there were three exaggerations, which was the tapuach, it was the geffen, we'll see what that was, and then it was also the paroches. But the gold bowl was not an exaggeration. Asam lo, that was not an exaggeration. Ein anius b'makam ashiris, because he held there's no concept of anius. We don't show any signs of poverty in a place of great wealth, meaning the Beis Hamikdash, which was so abundant with splendor and riches, that's not the time to start skimping and say, okay, to our animals, we won't give out of a gold dish. So he was of the opinion that everything that was done in the Beis Hamikdash was done big scale. So even the Tamid was given to drink out of a gold dish. That was Rav Yanai's opinion. So that's kind of like a tangential machlokas he had with Rava. Okay, be that as it may, what was the guzma? What was the exaggeration involving the grapevine and the paroches? So it says tapuach when it comes to the mound. I know what that exaggeration was. That the mound wasn't really 300 cores worth of ashes and coal. But what was geffen? The tznan we learned in the Mishnah. Geffen zavaiso medesa pesach ha'hechal. That when you went in the antechamber, when you went in the ulam, going into the Beis Hamikdash, at the doorway to the Kodesh section, there was this huge decorative golden grapevine. And donors, when they wanted to really do something to make it look nicer, they would go and buy from a goldsmith. They would get a golden leaf and they would bring it to the Beis Hamikdash to attach it to that gold vine so it would look beautiful. Like there was this massive golden vine that had leaves and it had grape clusters. It was all gold. So it says as follows. There was in the when you went into the ulam, into the antechamber, and then when you wanted to go into the echal, into the Kodesh section, there was a massive golden grapevine, and it says umedula al gabe kulunosos. It was suspended on special poles. Anyone who wanted to special leaf, we're turning the page in the front that'll bring us to Chav Tesam and Beis. In the back is 29b1. Oh, Gargir or Eshkol, a golden grape or a golden cluster, maybe even Tolaba. So if you wanted to beautify it, your next trip to Yerushalayim, you'd bring this gold and they would hang it up as a way of saying this. Now, again, I don't know if it actually had the donors' names on it, or not, but it was a way of beautifying the Beis Hamikdash. And Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Tzara says, Maisa, one time something happened, they needed to service the grapevine. There were so many gold donations on there, it took 300 Kohanim to lift the grapevine and get it out of there. So that's the exaggeration about the grapevine. It didn't take 300 Kohanim. It's just a way of talking, saying that it took a whole lot of Kohanim because there was so much in the way of donations. All right, we're going to pause here. We'll continue, God willing, tomorrow night. We'll see what the exaggeration was about the paroches. All right, we'll say a Kaddish Rabbanan in a minute. Rabbi Chanani ben Akasha Omer Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisrael Lefikach Yirba Torah Mitzvah Adonai Chafetz L'man Sidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.